computer. Okay, done.
You know, maybe my Zoom is old. I need to do something or whatever. I can't share screen. Sorry, I can't like have a background. That's what I'm saying.
No worries, lah. Don't worry.
So
Mine is institutional license, so it's normal. Okay.
you know, this packing thing is, oh God, it's so.
It's killing, right? I know. Okay, we're going live on Facebook now. And once I play, okay, Kat,
So I let them in now?
yeah, let them in now.
All right.
Okay, everybody, we are going to be starting very soon. Thank you all for coming. And just in a while, as we go live on Facebook, yeah, to start on for this guest lecture. Sorry, just a lot of things to do at the moment. Preparing live stream and so on and so forth. Okay, so thank you all for joining us on a very lovely morning. If you're joining us in Malaysia, or for some of you in Australia. And I would like to wish everybody a happy Pride Month as June has commenced. Yeah, and we would like to also wish everybody a healthy and safe time, especially in Malaysia as we are in this going through this lockdown together. So I'm very, very happy to introduce you Miss Mahi Ramakrishnan, who is not only a wonderful human being, but also a person I can call a friend, and also a person I can call a big sister. And she is has cordially accepted the invitation to give a guest lecture on opening doors through documentary storytelling. And as part of the Sustainable and Social Marketing Guest Lecture Series organized by Sunway University Marketing Society, and also the Sunway University Business School. So my name is Derek Ong, and I will be moderating the session today. Now, just a little bit of ground rules before we begin. This is going to be a very safe space, so we do invite questions and comments, and I think the admin is going to put up a link if you have any questions you want to ask. But during the course of the guest lecture, I will allow Miss Mahi to control the whole session. Now, Mahi, would you like to unmute your video and show everybody your face while I give you a bit of background of who this amazing person is, okay?
Hello.
Hi. So Miss Mahi Ramakrishnan is a multiple award-winning filmmaker and investigative journalist. She has worked with television, print media, including the BBC, Time Magazine, New York Times, Al Jazeera, USA Today, and the Voice of America for over 21 years. Now, her last documentary, Bo, which I've seen it, it's really good, has won 9 international awards from Europe, the US, and India. Mahi is a refugee rights activist, and she's founded the annual Refugee Fest, including the Refugee Fest, and founded Beyond Borders Malaysia, which is an NGO to promote and protect the rights of refugee and stateless people in Malaysia. She has appeared in a TED Talk in Monash University on the topic of hidden forms of human trafficking. And I believe that we are going to have a lot to learn from her today. So Mahi, take it away.
Hello, everyone. So everyone's video is muted, yeah, but hopefully everyone is listening to this. So yeah, like what Dr. Derek Ong says, we are good friends, or else I would never do this at 9 o'clock in the morning. My day officially starts at 11 for anything for Derek. So the thing is that I thought that the best way to do this is to have a conversation with all of you, as opposed to this guest lecture thingy where I'm talking and talking and talking, and you have to listen. So I'd rather listen to you talk more than me doing all the talking. But before I even begin, every time someone introduces me, they say award-winning filmmaker. Now, there are so many of my friends who don't even bother putting their films in to film festivals. One, because it's really expensive. Two, because it doesn't really mean anything. So winning an award is one thing, but that doesn't mean that you're brilliant or great. But there are so many other filmmakers who do incredible work and stay away from film festivals as well, because sometimes it can be really costly for us, like $50 every time you put in a film. But I do it because it gives us a chance to ensure that lots and lots of people from different parts of the world actually watch it. So, and like what Derek says, I think that bio that I sent him, that has not actually been updated. So I've done journalism for about 30 years now, basically using different platforms, whether it's the print media or television, to tell my stories. And I just want to listen to a little bit from any of you about what your interest is. Are you the kind of people who actually likes reading, or you prefer to watch films and documentaries? A little bit about yourselves, like who is here, so that I don't just see names on the screen, but I actually get to know the people who are here, if that's possible. Derek?
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm muted. Yes, go ahead. Please interact with Miss Mahi if you want to.
Yeah, so anyone who can introduce yourselves so that I know who is here, where are you guys from, because I was told that it's not entirely the student population, but this is also open to the public as well. So yeah, thanks.
Hi, Mahi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, my name is Shamini, or Sham, as my friends call me. And I see one good friend already having her video on, Malar. I'm from Singapore.
Hi.
Yes, I like to read. I like to read a lot of things. I like to read fiction and nonfiction, except that for the past 2 years, it's been a lot of nonfiction. And I like to see documentaries, well thought out, balanced documentaries on a range of things: historical, history, on things that are happening at a social front, especially when it's got to do with some form of, not especially, but when it's got to do with some form of discrimination or one or the other, right? Yep.
Thank you so much for that.
You're
Anyone
welcome.
else? Anyone else?
Yeah, I suppose I'll go because I'm the next person that's the video on. Mahi, thank you for doing this. My name is Malar. I'm from KL. And I love reading nonfiction. I only read nonfiction kind of only because I think it complements the part that I don't have in my head, I think. I have only just started watching and appreciating documentaries because I have friends like Sham, and I realize how much I've missed out in these great stories that's been told, right? Especially, I have kids, and they relate to that a lot more. It's easy to sit down and watch and talk about it than to get them to read a book. Why am I here? I'm actually really here because I love storytelling, and I love what you're doing, and perhaps, I want to definitely learn and see how you're thinking about all of this to have done such amazing, important work that we need in this world. So I just want to thank you ahead for waking up at 9 o'clock and doing this.
Thank you. Okay, so the thing is that, yes, like I said, I've done print as well as documentaries and films, right? So the thing is that every time, writing is incredibly difficult because, you have got different forms of writing. So I started off with the news desk, and I want to tell you this story. This story is really important. It kind of describes my life going into journalism and all kinds of other things. So it was my first assignment. I was told to go to University Malaya, and there was this conference that was happening, and I was told to cover it, right? So I turn up there, and then everyone is talking about different things, and I'm utterly confused. There was no one there to help me, no one to show the ropes. So I go back. I was with the Sun newspaper then. And I go back and I write something, and I wait and wait and wait, hoping that the editor will kind of pass it so that I can go back, because I was really under a lot of stress. So after I think about 2.5 hours, the editor calls me, and I walk up to him, and this is exactly what he does. He prints my report. He takes it out of the printer. He looks at me. He crushes it like this. And the way he was looking at me, it was like he's crushing me into pieces. And then he was like, he just throws it into the bin. And I'm like, so I had to turn and walk back to my desk. And I was thinking, okay, Mahi, so decide. decide whether you need this, decide if you can do this. I mean, what on earth? You know, this is crazy. It's like, oh my God, my pride and everything is just shattered, right? But the thing is that, you know, I stuck to it. I stuck to it and slowly learned to actually write news reports, because they are like about 8 or 12 paragraphs. And during my time, it was all about Malaysia's Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir, said this. He also said that, and he did this, and he did that. And he also said that we're doing so many other things. And thank you very much for reading. So it was that kind of a news report. But slowly, I also started then working for this thing called AP and AFP. These are news wires, right? And I must say that it was during my time with the news wires that I actually sharpened my reporting skills. And why? Because, of course, the height of it all was reporting about Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, Malaysia's former Deputy Prime Minister, right? So I covered everything, the first trial as well as the second trial, and I was so privy to our mattress with, you know, seminal stains actually walking in or being brought in and out of the courtroom, you know, and you don't even know where to put your face, right? But, you know, that was the time where, you know, people knew who we were. And they recognized the red press tag that I was wearing, because it's kind of like the pariah press tag. It kind of like allows people to see from a kilometer away, there comes our enemy walking towards us when you really need to keep the distance. Because a red press tag is what the Malaysian government gives every foreign media. But every time we are standing to cross the road to get to the High Court, you know, motorists and people in cars and bikes, you know, they will honk for us, because they realize that we were there and that we are the foreign media, and that, you know, they'll actually hear a semblance of the truth from us, right? So when I was reporting for AP and AFP, this is how it works. You are sitting in the courtroom and you're watching the entire court drama unfolding. And in all of that, everybody is thinking about the story as they are watching what's progressing before their eyes, right? So the minute we come out, we have got AP, AFP, and Reuters. These are all like competitors, but as journalists, we are friends. So we will take our phone from the police, because we need to leave it outside and we can't take it into the courtroom. And then we will switch it on, we'll take a deep breath, and we will just report. So there is no writing, you're not reading something from a newspaper, but you're thinking. And that really, I must say, was very stressful. But, you know, as I started doing it more and more, it kind of really made me think. Like, as you're watching, you know exactly what the peg is, what is the lead for the news reports. And that kind of training, I think, is incredibly important as well, right? But here, so what happens is, you know, I'm also an artist. So I do a little bit of music, I do political art and those kinds of things. And, you know, when you make films, you know, they say that filmmakers are artists. I'm not very sure. But so what happens is I wanted to go that extra mile, right? So you're thinking, oh my God, everyone is talking about today, you know, the witness said that, you know, she was totally besotted with Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, or the lawyer grilled the witness, you know, so that, you know, she had to forcefully admit that, yes, she was totally in love with Mr. Anwar Ibrahim or something like that. So everybody is doing the same thing. What in that situation will you do differently? So to someone like you who loves nonfiction, or anyone else who is listening in, what would you do in that setting, a courtroom where everyone is reporting the same thing? What would you do to make it a little bit more exciting?
Right now, what I'm thinking is, I'm not sure whether, yeah, I think now what I do is whenever I read a very similar kind of reporting in the area of work that I do, just EQ, for example, I look for what is breaking the pattern, because I'm looking for something that's not being told. So when I read a research, for example, I try and argue in my head, you know, okay, they looked at this group, but how about the opposite group? That's not taken into consideration. You know, they will tell you, 70% of the people, were reported to behave this way. So I want to know what happened to the 30%. And I want to know more about what they are not reporting about the 70%. So that's what I do in my space of work.
Are there mass communication students here? So this is a setting. This is a courtroom. You have Mr. Anwar there. You have the judge. You have the defense as well as the prosecution team. You have us, the nosy, the real busybody sitting there trying to, outdo the other, trying to find that angle for a story, trying to go that extra mile. So if I have any mass communication students and you are in the courtroom and you need to go out there and give your editor that story which no one else is getting, what would you have done? Anyone? See, Derek, this is why I prefer to be in your classroom, because then I can just like stand in front of someone and say, hello, hello.
If we could only do that, but unfortunately, we just have to make the best we can.
Would you settle for a mass communication minor about like 40 years ago?
Sure, of course. Of course, why not? All the way from Singapore, okay. Tell us.
From Malaysia, then crossed over to Singapore. Anyway, that's a different story. I would look for, like Malar said, the bits that people don't think it's important, like, who's behind the lady who's being grilled, who came with her, what is the judge doing at this point, for example, or the context, perhaps, to give it a little bit more of a flavor, if you're talking about it from a storytelling perspective. Yeah, that top of my head ideas.
Both of you are right, because you need to have that. My former boss, Simon Elegant, when I was working for Time, will say, sex, drugs, rock and roll, man. That's how we roll, right? But the thing is, you need to give that element, something that will actually hook the reader. Because when you're doing a news report and it's about the courtroom drama and it's just dragging on, it's just so boring. So what I did was, Shankara Naya, who was Anwar Ibrahim's lawyer, and we became friends. And, Mr. Anwar, what he will do is, he will come and talk to me, but he will talk to the wife. And I will ask the wife questions and he will answer the wife, because you're not allowed to talk to him directly. And then what I used to do is, I used to have the small little papers where I will actually scribble questions for Mr. Anwar. And then I'll roll it and pass it quietly to Shankara Naya. Shankara will pass it to Anwar. Anwar, during when the time, when the court is standing down or when he has the recess, he will write the answers and then he'll roll it back and then he'll pass it to Shankara. Shankara will give it to me. And then I will run to the toilet, lock myself in and report, because I do not want anyone even hearing me reporting, because we wanted that extra angle. We wanted to give that much more, what we call in the journalism lingo, color. So while you are also talking about something really dark, difficult, which is also very, could be a little bit mundane, boring, then you look for those elements, those things that we call as color, to actually hook a person to read on. Because if not, you will lose the person, right? So like, for example, when we write for magazines, when I was with Time magazine, I realized that if you do not hold your readers for the first 3 paragraphs, you have lost them. If it is not sexy enough for them to read and to say, oh my God, I want to know what she's writing about, you have lost them. I'll give you an example. The year was, Derek can actually, switch off his whatever and go to sleep because he knows this story. So the thing is, it was 2001 and I was on my way to southern Thailand with arms smuggler to buy a Smith & Wessons, because I wanted a gun, because I wanted to talk about how, I wanted to talk about the arms smuggling route in Southeast Asia and the primary role that the Thai military actually played in enabling these weapons to actually be sold, to be bought and sold, right? So what happened was I turned up at Sungai Golok, and then we had to wait in our hotel rooms. And because I was terrified, and it was the first time I was actually attempting something like that, what I did was I had to, have 3 different hotel rooms, and I was staying in one. I had paid for 3, but I was staying in one because I wanted to be safer. And then after that, what we did was we waited for the army vehicle to actually come and pick us up. We went to the Yala training camp, and then, the colonel who actually saw me was really, really upset because, he didn't know why suddenly, I was there when they were actually going to broker a few deals. But the thing is, when I wrote about it for Time magazine, I did not start with something that was so dark and difficult. I actually started the first person observation, that article, saying it looks like a sack of potatoes. Because while you are in that situation, even though my hands and legs and body were shaking because I was really scared, but the thing is, I was also being really observant. So one of the ways in which you actually tell a story is to actually observe everything that's going around you, because you need to, sometimes a story can be, especially for someone like me, who has done this for 30 years, a story can actually be staring at you in your face and you don't even recognize it unless it gives you a tight slap or something like that, because it's very difficult. You become so blasé about so many things. That's why now, every time I work on a documentary film, I try and have this conversation with my daughter. Her first degree is in mass comm as well. She edits for me, and she's currently doing her master's in international relations. But you know, she works with me as well. So I sit down and have this conversation with her because she's 25 years old, and she's able to see that which I can't sometimes, because I'm just so jaded, or I've done this a bit too long, and I can get a little bit like, things can get a little bit more boring and mundane for me. So what happened was, when I was there, even though I was really scared, and, there was a television and there was some pornography going on, that was there. And then there was this little small fridge where there was a beer and the guys were drinking. And then I saw this man carrying something in a bag, like it was a gunny sack, and he carried it. He brought it to the rickety table, and then he just dropped everything. And the guns just dropped on the table, and some of it just fell. And my guy, who is so adept, just opened, disassembled the Smith & Wessons and then assembled it back so quickly. And then I paid 800 ringgit for it. But although the story is about the arms smuggling route and what actually happens and how it enables different militant groups to actually buy weapons, but the most important thing is to start the story with something that will actually hook the readers to read more. So I said, it looked like a sack of potatoes. So that's how we started doing it. But having said that, the thing is, we are living at a very interesting time at this moment, especially in Malaysia. We see so much of political uncertainty, and I can safely say, because I have been told not to become too political, and Derek has already warned me that but still. So the thing is, yes, I can safely say that we have got one of the worst governments in place at this point in time, and which is why storytelling becomes that much more important. Why your words and the way you string together sentences, the way you present them, and how you actually work, with the story, how you work towards building that narrative over a few months, if possible, and the kind of people that you actually lobby with, the kind of people that you actually liaise with, the kind of people that you actually network with, becomes that much more important, primarily at this point in time. So for example, when I say this point in time, I'm not just talking about when the coup happened. I'm also talking about from last March, when the lockdown happened because of the pandemic. So is there anyone here who can share a story with me, or anything that has happened that you have actually seen or experienced during the pandemic? I only see Malar and my Singaporean friends talking, but what happened to all the students? Come on, yeah, it's just me having a conversation, trying to learn from you folks. So please, tell me.
Actually, Mahi, there are a couple of questions which has been posted on the Google form. If I could post them to you. Somebody asked, where do you get the inspiration for your content? I don't know whether you've answered that question or not. And then another question is, as an aspiring photojournalist, how would you recommend that they start? This person says, currently I feel lost on how to start, especially in a different country from my own.
Okay. Content is everywhere. Content is to your left, content is to your right. It's in front of you, at the back of you, it's everywhere. But it's just that sometimes, there is this thing called passion, something that actually enables us to work on that story. And we all learned to become investigative journalists, filmmakers, photojournalists, photographers from our grandmothers, because they are the biggest, investigative journalists that you can actually find. It's so natural. It's so natural to them, because they will tell you which neighbor is actually the crook, in your neighborhood. They will tell you whose wife is actually seeing someone else, or whose husband is actually having an affair with 3 other women and a man as well. So the thing is, they are the brilliant ones. It's just that, you know, it's something that actually moves you. Of course, as a journalist, you're given assignments, right? Especially when you work with news desk. And I am so grateful and thankful that that chapter is over for me, because you don't get to choose. And essentially, it'll be such boring, mundane stories where a minister is doing this, a minister is doing that. And then, of course, you still look for a little bit of color and you try to pursue it by doing, you know, follow-up stories and stuff like that. But you don't have a choice because these stories are assigned to you. So you need to do them. But, you know, like me, when you work for yourself, then, you know, you have that freedom of choosing, of deciding what story you want to work on. And that usually happens in conversations. I'll give you an example. I actually did a story, I think in 2013. I was in Burma the entire year, going in and out of Burma, Malaysia. And I did a film that is more of an idiot's guide to the issues surrounding the Rohingya narrative. So you can watch it and you will understand what are some of the dizzyingly complex issues that one needs to look at and be informed about when you talk about the Rohingya narrative. But when I was doing that story, I met this man in an IDP camp, an internally displaced people's camp. I got talking to him because, you know, sometimes what motivates you? You look at that person and he becomes an interesting character to you. And then, you know, I actually, when I'm already in that mood, I only look at people in frames. I look at everything in frames, like, oh, this is the frame, this is how it's going to work, this is how it will pan out, because you become a filmmaker. So I was talking to him, and he revealed the fact that he was, I won't call him a trafficker, I will say he's a people smuggler, because he was actually, in his mind, facilitating a journey for his people who are stuck in the internally displaced camps, because there is not enough water, clean water, not enough medicine, not enough food, even though the World Food Program had kicked in and they were in the internally displaced people's camps. But you have this thing called corruption, and the middlemen, the agents, and the ministers were all, you know, taking away that which actually was given to the people. So what happened was, with him, I realized, oh my God, there is a potential for another story. And because trafficking and anti-trafficking activities really motivate me. Why? Because I'm a busybody like that. Because, you know, for me, I need that excitement. I need that drama. I need to keep on pushing, and I need to, you know, dig that much deeper to find that little bit of information or that I can build the story on. So that is how, you know, with the story, with the conversation, I realized there is a potential for another story. And then when I was doing that, what happened was I realized that, oh, okay, so there is another special group of people that the traffickers are aiming and focusing at. And these are young Rohingya girls, because they are trafficked, held along the Malaysia-Thai border in trafficking camps, and then sold off as child brides to Rohingya men in Malaysia. And before they are sold off, they are sexually assaulted. So you see, in conversations, you will find that inspiration and that aspiration to actually dig deeper and to tell a story, also primarily because you're motivated. So the content is actually everywhere, but there are some issues that are very close to my heart. And when I come across those content and I want to do something a little bit deeper, then I start digging. And that's how these stories actually come about. Is it easy to do that? Sometimes yes, because, you know, it's just luck and it all falls together, and you have this person who introduces you to another person and you get all those information. But many a times it takes a little bit of effort. So the passion is really important. I'll give you another story. A few years ago, I can't really remember when, maybe Derek 3-4 years ago, when I did a film, I got a brief from BBC, Angus Crawford, a colleague of mine based in the UK in London. And they sent a note saying, okay, Mahi, please let us know if you want to do this story, because we want to do a video out of it, but I'm not sure if you're up to taking it. So I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, my stomach did a turn, because it was about the convicted British pedophile, Richard Huckle. And the brief was very specific. I needed to build a story. So, which means I needed to look for the victims, and then I needed to put a story together for the BBC. Now it was very difficult, because that entailed me reading Richard Huckle's diary, like word for word, line for line, repeatedly over and over, because sometimes you read it too many times and you're just so desperate to find that clue to work on a story, to build on a story, and you miss it, just like that. You miss it. It's right there before your eye. You just don't see it. So what happened was I had to not just read his diary, but I also had to read the court documents. And it was traumatizing because the court documents spoke about how he had not just sexually abused them, but he had urinated on them, he had ejaculated on them, he had used animals and those kinds of things. And we are talking about children who were as young as 4 years old. So it took me 5 months to finally break the story, but I kept at it. Also because I've done quite a bit of work on the child sex industry in Malaysia as well. There is a film that I've done many, many years back that looks at and exposes Malaysia's child sex industry. So I have children. And I think that, it's just something that's unfathomable, that kind of sexual violence which is perpetrated on anyone for that matter, let alone children. So it took me 5 months. So again, it's really about finding that clue. It's about following your heart, but it's also about the passion that leads it. So content is everywhere. But one word of caution for everyone who is listening, but do not want to actually speak to me for some reason. I'm just joking. So the thing is that when you talk about investigative journalism, there are some rules that you just need to follow. Like, for example, okay, so if I'm working on something that's really dangerous, trafficking issues or about a triad or a child sex industry, for example, and I go to Derek because in conversations with him over the years, I understand that he may know someone who could actually help me, right? So he will say, okay, Akka, I'm going to put you in touch with this person, go talk to him or her. So I go and talk to him. And then he says, I know just the right person for you. And then I'll put you in touch with the other person, you go talk to the person. I will go talk to the person. Now that person says, so it's Derek, his friend, and then his friend says, there is another person you need to talk to. Now, I know Derek personally over more than 10, 15 years now. So I know what he is about. I know what he's capable of. And I know that he will never, ever put me in trouble. His friend, the second guy, knows Derek really well. Now, I may have met him because, we are friends and Derek could have introduced me or I could have seen him in Derek's house party or something like that. There is a chance that I may have met the second person, the number 2, right? But when he introduces me to another person, there is still a slight chance that that person could have seen Derek or could have interacted with Derek or may even know Derek. There is a chance for that. But when that person says, no, Mahi, I know this person, he is the end all and be all, he will give you all the information, he knows who are doing the trafficking, he knows who are the main folks, he knows where the children are coming from, he knows which brothels actually have child sex workers, and he will take you in. Now what happens is, chances of Derek knowing that person is very slim, right? Derek may never know that person. And the person who introduces the last guy to me may or may not actually be Derek's friend. Derek may not necessarily know what the guy is all about. Is he really a good guy? Can he be trusted? It's all a 50-50. Always remember, you don't follow that lead. This is how the Asian Wall Street Journal journalist, whose name I can't remember for the life of me at this point in time, this is how he got beheaded. This is how he got killed, because he was in Pakistan and he was pursuing a story on militancy, and he got carried away because it was just a long trail of people. By the time it had ended, so many people had gone through the trail, and because I think he was just so excited that for a moment he forgot about the fact that the very first few people in line may not necessarily actually know the person he met on that fateful night in Pakistan. And he never came back he never went back home to his wife. He was murdered. And all of us, from Time Magazine journalists to all of us, we were given a copy, we were sent a copy of the beheading. And I have never worked with him. I do not actually know him, but Daniel Pearl. Yes, that's right. Thank you. So it's just that, but we all felt terrible and we all felt terrified as well. So this is, just just a pointer for any of you all who want to actually pursue investigative journalism. And secondly, in order for you to actually work on the content, you need contacts. Contacts are people, not just your friends. When I say contacts, I mean, if you want to do that kind of difficult, dangerous stories, you need to build contacts over years and decades. It took me, I think, about 15 years. You have contacts in the police force, you have contacts in high places, you have contacts who are gangsters, you have contacts who are smugglers. And these are people who you actually, quote unquote, work with. You keep a distance, but you work with in order to be able to tell a story effectively. Now, why do some of my films actually get recognized? It's because it's quite easy to talk about trafficking from a third person point of view. It's quite easy to actually get an expert, who can talk about trafficking issues. But it's different when you actually get to talk to a trafficker, and that's part of your film. Because, that's like, it's a, wow, I'm watching this and suddenly I'm listening to this trafficker talk to me about his film, and that really takes it somewhere else. Now, but it comes with its dangers. Again, when I talk about this, I must say that these contacts that you have been engaging with, it's a continuum. There's no such thing that I stop and then I go back after a year or 6 months. It's like, you build trust, you gauge their character, you really need to know who they are, how much you can trust them, what is the working relationship, how much gap and distance do you actually maintain when you're doing this work. Despite that, you also need to have a support system. And why do I say this? Especially for women. I see a lot of women here. So the thing is that for women, because gendered violence is different when it comes to women in journalism, whether it's about them body shaming or taking a whack at you, or death threats and rape threats and anything else that will try to destabilize you. Now, I did a film on baby trafficking for Dr. Harjini Zainuddin, the child rights activist. And it actually took me a year and a half, again, because it took that much time for me to actually film the buying and selling of a baby. Because Teeny's brief to me was very specific. She said, I have this ongoing conversation with the police, but I need to convince them. I need to show them something. I need to really throw it on the table and say, look at this, let's do something about this. So when I was filming it, half of me just wanted to throw the camera down and run and actually say, oh my God, and I'm going to call the police. But then I also know that I have a specific brief, right? So we made the film, and after that, I was approached by YB Charles Santiago, the Klang Member of Parliament, to actually do a film on migrant trafficking, the trafficking of migrant workers. So that evening, I had already fixed an appointment with a potential, is that the right word? With a trafficker, someone who actually facilitates, bringing in these people and putting them in different industries that, that's not the same industry as their calling visa stipulates. So, but in the afternoon, I had to do a corporate video, and I had gone out of the house only to remember that I had forgotten something. So 20 minutes, within a span of 20 minutes, I went back home and I saw my front gate literally like moving. And I was like, oh my God, Mahi, come on, yeah? You need to be more careful, I'm telling myself. But then when I go closer, I realized, oh my God, the padlock is still there, but the ear of the padlock has been cut. So I opened my wooden door, and the entire home was a mess. Everything was thrown on the floor. The lights, all fan, all air conditioners were working. My room was completely, in fact, the entire house was completely ransacked. But interestingly, nothing was taken. So I had a pair of a diamond stud, which is there, and that wasn't taken. My son's Armani watch was there, not taken. They took my laptop bag, and my laptop charger. Next to it, there was a pen, which was actually a spy camera, but they did not recognize it as a spy camera, so they did not take it. When I looked at the footage, I got really scared, because even I, after living there for years and years, did not bother to actually figure out where my CCTV cameras were, where the lift area is, but those folks knew it. So what happened is, they had a piece of paper, and as they were passing the CCTV camera, their face was hidden like this, right? So we didn't know who it was. Of course, the police came, they dusted for fingerprints and things like that. And I called YB Charles Santiago, who was in Parliament, and he contacted me. And so I had that support system. But as a woman and as a person who felt really violated, just like anyone else would, because it was an invasion of my private space, there was actually nothing, no system, there is no mechanism, there is no policy that has been put in place right up to today that actually helps or gives access to women journalists, filmmakers, anyone in the media, anyone who's telling stories to actually seek refuge from. So what I'm trying to say here is that, yes, you need to do stories. Yes, you need to tell the stories, but nothing is more important than your safety. And more importantly, the safety and security of the people that you are talking to, the people that you are trying to advocate for in your films. Yeah. Derek, what was the second question? Sorry, I kind of got carried away.
Actually, Mahi, there are 6 questions that have already came in since you were talking.
Okay, so
do you want me to
answer them? Yeah.
Do you want me to go through all the questions with you?
Yeah, just go. Just one after the other. Let me answer them.
Okay, so how do we encourage better storytelling? Does the story have to work inside and out?
The story has to work inside and out. The story has to work for you. It has to work for the people that you are advocating for. If you're talking about refugees, it has to work for the refugees. This is why I also believe that the role of filmmakers and journalists is changing a little bit. Let me tell you very quickly a story in India. This was, this was about a guy who lived in a home that was so sparse, it was like a hut with just 1 or 2 electrical appliances. His electricity bill was like about 200-300 rupees every month, but suddenly one day he goes home and it's like 400,000 rupees, 4 lakh rupees. And he was shocked. He goes to every other organization and department and everyone, nobody helps him, and he's saddled with that bill, 4 lakh rupees, in a hut, which has got like 2 or 3 electrical appliances at the most. So a journalist actually, found this person. She read about this. She found the person and she kept at it. She spoke about him. She kept writing stories about him. And then finally what happened was that bill was completely waived because, it was quite clear that, there has been a mistake. So the thing is, it is brilliant if it works inside out. To me, it has to, because, that's what I do to myself. So, but, if you put a story out there, okay, let me tell you this. 30 years ago, I went into journalism thinking that I'm going to change the world. 3 years later, I realized, oh my good God, nothing is going to change. It's really going to take a long time. Oh God, what have I done? And now, 2017, I did Bo. It was screened. I got into lots of trouble with Malaysia's censor board. But, it's 2021 now, and only now I'm putting a film together, because when you put a film out that talks about children who have been sexually assaulted, there was one child who was 13 years old who actually spoke about how she was raped by more than 60 traffickers, 60 traffickers, and then you can't really do any intervention. Okay, so does the film actually work for the child? No, it doesn't. And it's very difficult to make that film and go home and sleep and say, it's okay, I tried, I created awareness, because you're constantly asking yourself, and then what? Derek, second.
Yeah, so I think you've answered this question. Have you ever faced the issue of journalistic freedom, like getting into serious trouble for covering a story?
Oh my God, all the time. Derek could have answered that question for you.
Yeah, I know you.
Even Richard Nicol, I was called in by the police because when the story broke and Malaysian journalists didn't really know I was working on the story, because that's what you do. Besides, apart from your editor, no one knows about it. Even sometimes I don't even tell my family members because it's just too tedious to talk about this, because investigative journalism also needs a lot of focus, right? So they called me, and then I asked them whether I was being interrogated, and the police said, no, we just want to talk to you. I said, in that case, can you please meet me at a coffee place, And then they said, okay. So we had this conversation, and they asked me questions over 5 hours. And I also raised issues about how I felt that there was much more than what we had spoken about in the video. And the fact that, my bosses had said that's enough. But, as police officers, I actually said that I would hope that they will pursue the investigation further. But it didn't really happen. I think 2 weeks later, they kind of closed the thing. But they did ask me a question, though. They said, hey Mahi, okay, so we have this forensics unit, we have the IT unit, we have the intelligence unit, and we have all these departments within the police force. How come you did this story? How come you found out about this? And I said, I just did my job.
That's a good answer.
I can be a horrible person like that. Derek, the other question?
Yeah. Someone asked, I know you talked about injecting color into your stories, but did you ever feel that you end up becoming apathetic when you dig deeper because you could potentially end up sensationalizing a serious issue to the point of parodying it?
Definitely, and that's all. That always needs. That's a great question. Thank you to whoever it is that asked that, because all the time we need to keep ourselves at check. There has to be a check and balance, and that is why we have this thing called an editor who actually looks at it. And then even when you're working on a story, especially given the number of years, you know that you tell the story exactly the way it is on the ground, because every story is powerful. Look, the story that I did on the trafficking of babies and migrants, yes, they are great stories, they're incredible stories. The arms smuggling, great. Richard Huckle, great. But there is also this thing, which is like, very much citizen journalism at a very micro level, where you actually write about, this couple who are like in their 70s and who are retiring after having their drugstore right at the corner of the house that you live in for like 50 years. They do not have children, they do not have savings. So you write about that. And what happens is it creates that engagement with the people who live in that neighborhood. And it actually enables them to come together. It pushes them to come together and to do something for these two people who have been there, who have been servicing them, who have kept their drugstore open for more than 50 years. So you see, every story is important. Your story is important. My story is important. Any story that you tell at any level is important. But also, the most important thing is that, yes, you also do not have to feel, oh my God, what am I doing? Because the first thing they teach you in journalism is that you need to have that distance from that issue that you're talking about. You need to have the distance with the people that you're actually interviewing. Doesn't happen. Because, come on, you're human. You're human, right? I mean, you talk about, you go and talk about, you talk to this child who tells you at the age of 13 and a half that she has been raped by more than 60 traffickers. What do? You can't keep rolling. I just told my producer, cut it, cameraman, cut it. And then I just sat next to her because she was crying and I was trying not to cry, but I could not film. So yes, if you want to, and I've done so many films where I have stopped to bring in development, I've stopped to bring in mobile clinics, I've stopped to bring in a school and either kind of aid to the vulnerable and marginalized communities that I'm actually writing about or making a film about. Of course, that also contributes to the fact that it takes a long time for me to make a film. But in retrospect, I realized that because you're not just taking from them, but you're also giving, that enabled that much more access. So I think it's really about a fine balance between compassion, the passion for storytelling, and also just remaining human.
Yeah.
Now,
Derek, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes.
Just
me?
bugging the daylight. Yeah. I'm just bugging the daylights out of me.
Okay.
So the people in this room, I'm assuming, are students of mass communication.
Mass communication and also social marketing.
Okay, very interesting. No one's opening. I mean, we're all potentially journalists, and they're not opening their videos, or we're not being able to see them. They're asking questions from the background.
because it is a class guest lecture, but I did wanted to put questions in the background because the last guest lecture I had was a sensitive topic. So with sensitive topics, I try to moderate it. So
I do understand that. Yeah.
And Mahi, I do understand and appreciate where you're coming from with your ideas and stories. And I think that these two last questions that I got is very, very apt to cap off everything that you've just said. Of course, we can still go on and on if you want. So somebody asked, what inspired you to talk about these tough and taboo topics in Malaysia? And this person said, I personally find that the child sex industry is unfathomable as well. And do you have any advice for the young adults on actions that we can take to make a positive change in this situation? And then the last question, what keeps you going in pursuing your career despite all these threats?
Like I said, it's the passion. And also because, not just as a journalist or a filmmaker, but I also work with refugees. So if you look at my Facebook, you can see little stories. And, we realize that the power of words, the power of visuals, the power of storytelling is so great that it actually creates a lot of engagement with people who may not necessarily even work on any of these issues or topics. What happens is it creates it kind of piques their curiosity, and it actually pushes them to get to know about issues a lot more. And, at the end of the day, it's not just me, but we hope to see more and more young people taking up storytelling. It doesn't have to be so hyphened. It doesn't have to be in a media. It doesn't have to be in a foreign media. It can just be a blog. It can be you doing a 1-minute video talking about whatever it is that you have encountered. It is really as simple as that. And if you want to work together, it's really about, you see a work and you say, okay, I want to do more. Get in touch with the filmmaker, get in touch with the reporter, get in touch with the people that you're going to advocate for. Because what is really important, and what we largely forget, is the fact that it always, at least to me, it has to be community-led engagement and advocacy, which means we listen to the aspirations, we listen to what people want as a way of moving forward in making that which they want possible for them, as opposed to thinking we know what you need and we are going to do this advocacy. So a simple thing like, sharing a film, getting 5 of your friends together in a living room, to getting your family to watch it, to getting your parents to talk about it to their friends, getting your friends and their families to talk about it to others, is already a lot. It's already doing a lot, because you're creating awareness. And, there is this new thing, influencers, as you call them, people who are actually able to influence people using stories. As long as these stories are accurate, you're not fabricating them, you're not sensationalizing them, you're telling the stories the way it is, then it's already good to go. And if you want to take it to the next step, you want to take it to the next level, by all means, do advocacy, do lobbying with your state assembly persons, do lobbying with your members of parliament. You and I have every right and should turn up in parliament. Oh my God, it's still closed, right? I just remember, as I said that. But the thing is, everything is open in Malaysia except for our parliament. But what I'm saying is, you and I should turn up in parliament. You and I, as the people, as the citizens of this country, should be able to have conversations with our members of parliament. We should be able to lobby for policy changes. We should be able to lobby for a new law that will actually change the lives of people we are trying to advocate for in a way, in a positive manner. So you can start small and then you can build. But what is really important as well is to understand about the conversations which are happening globally, regionally, locally about the issue. So which means you need to read up, you need to understand more, you need to talk to experts, you need to talk to academics, you need to talk to the community, you need to talk and get to know the community, so that whatever that you are saying reflects what it actually is on the ground.
Yeah, and I think what you have just said is so important, because when I tell my students, you can't just do a story based on reading and assumption. You need to talk to the people that you're doing the story on, right?
Exactly.
And I think you've also answered this question that just came in. How do you start sharing your stories? It's kind of like a technical question, like what platforms or mediums, or even reaching out to magazines or media stations. How do you reach out to them?
Sometimes media stations, they have their own editorial policy, whether it's a television media or a television or a paper or a magazine, because also they have their own agenda, right? So the thing is, do you really need that? Of course, you can send your stuff to Al Jazeera and say, hey, would you like to screen this? I've worked on it and I'm quite happy to actually edit it and work on it more. You can do that, but there are people who just have their own websites, people who have their own YouTube channels, who have a platform on Vimeo, who actually share this and get others to actually share the video or the story, so that it becomes viral, so that it gains recognition. Let me tell you this, when I started, nobody knew me. I was the reporter, that the editor actually wanted to crush and throw into a bin. Remember that story? So the thing is, it's really about keeping at it, because at some point in time, when you do good stories, when you put your heart and soul into it, when you are becoming, I will not say that you are the voice of the voiceless, because that sounds so drama, even to me as an Indian. Sorry, that's a terrible thing to say. But the thing is that I'm just, but the thing is, not so much, but because not everyone may have that platform, but you are actually creating that platform. As long as you are able to sustain it, as long as you're able to tell good stories, it'll work. Now, before we actually wrap up, I also want to say this. There's one thing that is really nagging me. If all of you want to work on that, especially to the students whom I would have loved to interact with and see, but I can't. But the thing is, and do feel free, get my email from Derek if you're working on something, you need some kind of suggestion, because I learned so much more from you than you will ever learn from me. Because I said, I'm 51 years old, I've done this for 30 years, I can be jaded. But the thing is that what's really bothering me at this point in time is the announcement by the Director General of the Immigration saying that at this point in time of the pandemic, when so much resources need to go into containing the pandemic, expediting the vaccination, making sure that there's enough vaccination, and also making sure that every marginalized, vulnerable population, whether you are refugees, stateless, asylum seekers, documented, undocumented migrant workers, have access to that vaccination. Our wonderful Director General is talking about going after them. He's talking about raids to detain undocumented migrant workers. He's talking about satellite prisons and more prisons, more immigration detention centers which have been set up to detain them. This is highly unnecessary at this point in time because it is nothing but state-sponsored violence against marginalized and vulnerable population. They are not the cause of infections. The infections are caused by the snowball effect of the Sabah elections. It is caused by the government's lopsided and policies, the U-turns that they make, the half-baked decisions that they actually keep changing from time to time. So what we really need to do is to make sure that vaccinations that these documented and undocumented migrant workers and others actually get vaccinated. It's not to make sure that they actually end up in prison, because last year we had detention clusters thanks to our wonderful immigration. So, these are stories that are important. These are stories that you as students, as citizens, as the future leaders, as the future filmmakers and storytellers need to be doing. You need to be telling these stories. It's okay if you put a Facebook status that is like 4 lines because your friends will share it. Always remember that you are powerful, that your words are powerful as long as you use it wisely and in a just manner. So I really hope to see more work coming from all of you, and thank you for listening. Thank you for this opportunity. I must say that, Dr. Derek has been really consistent in getting many people to actually talk about different issues to his students, because it's not just academic, but he has really tried very hard over many years to instill that kind of values, to push students to actually look beyond the walls of their classrooms, to look at issues, to look at how we can do advocacy, to look at engagement with the public and marginalized communities. I think this is really important, because that's the only way we will actually be able to shape minds, shift minds, and bring about different discussions and narratives. So
and always constantly putting my job on the line.
Yeah, having us to talk to is
so that's why I always tell people, after a talk like this, in case if you don't be surprised if you find me reaching out to you for a job. Mahi, thank you so much. There are a couple of questions that just came in as well at the very.
What are the questions?
Somebody asked what is your most scariest what's your most scary experience in getting information from the community? What was the most difficult part of community engagement in your line of work? And I think you answered the question about would sharing on a Facebook page and IG would be a good start for storytelling, because you said about the status just now as well.
Making films is really difficult because the person will talk to you and then he'll be really animated to tell his story, blah blah blah, but then you put a camera in front of him and that's it, he freezes. That's the end of it. So what happens is, in order to get the story, sometimes you go back and you go back and you go back, you do the interview, you talk and talk and talk, because then at some point the real story will come out. At some point they will open up. So this is a challenge. And of course, when you're working with traffickers and others, there's always a risk element. But for me, what was even more frightening and even more daunting and even more difficult is to actually sit down and listen to stories from marginalized communities, from affected communities, because it's so difficult to understand or to try and comprehend how they hold on to life, how they hold on to hope and courage and compassion, despite all that has been happening to them. So I think this is, for me, it's a very difficult thing to do because I have had the privilege and the honor of working with refugee communities, and much more than what I have shared, they have taught me values that I will take to my grave. They have taught me to stay centered, to remain hopeful. They have taught me to be courageous, to have the determination. They have taught me that tomorrow will be a better day. And I have also had the privilege of them not just sharing their stories, but also their home and food. And to me, these are blessings. So, you know, as you work and as you tell stories, you will have that communication and that engagement with different groups of people, and consider that, you know, to be your biggest blessing.
I just want to give a shout out to the people who have put some comments on. These are not questions, but they are comments to just what you have just said. Somebody commented that you know, they agree. You know, the recent incidents of death under police custody is unbelievable as well. You know, racism between the races and foreigners are something us young adults have to create progression upon. Somebody thanks you as well. Because they feel that this whole session, although it was just like a lot of talk, you know, discussion, they feel that you have really provided them insights into many of the concepts and critical thoughts that they could not have been able to put in words in many other contexts. So they really, really thank you for that. And I think all of us thank you for this. Mahi, I put your email up on the chat. I hope it's the correct email. So time is...
gmail.com. I can't see without my reading glasses.
Okay, mahi4747@gmail.com, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I know that time is moving on, and a lot of us got other classes we need to go to, and maybe you have other things you want to go through. I think it will be fit if we could give a virtual clap to Mahi using your your reaction, because this wonderful individual, whom I call my big sister in Tamil, always, right? Always has inspired me to do a lot of things which I didn't dare to do myself when I was a young person, and to have her on is such a privilege and honor. And as you can see, it's so wonderful to hear from her. Next time we're going to have a bigger forum, we're going to have a bigger stage, hopefully, and this will be better in terms of sharing your thoughts to other people. Mahi, do you have any last minute things you want to tell the audience?
To the communication students, always stay curious. Stay safe, but stay curious. That will take you far. Thank you very much for this. And Malarvili, you know, our friend all the way from Singapore who actually spoke, I could see your faces. Thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure.
So everybody, thank you so much for being here. Continue to stay safe, continue to uplift each other, and do reach out to Mahi, because Mahi has a lot of donation drives going on right now that needs your help and your support. So please reach out to her on an email and find out what are the support that you can give her. Yeah, Mahi?
Yeah, Derek, you can also share the phone number. They can WhatsApp. It's perfectly fine.
Okay, the phone number. All right, can I'll share out the phone number as well. Actually, I cannot remember your phone number at this time. 012
373
373
9419.
Okay. Yeah. So please reach out to her, because she has a lot of donation drives. I see her posting up a lot of donation drives online for the refugee communities, for the single mothers, and also for the B40 community. And also, I have not done this, but I will do it. Please also go and book your biryani from Mahi. She's running a biryani wahalas or rice wahalas, right, or something like that.
It's actually an initiative where I work with refugee women and single mothers.
Yeah.
And what happens is 60% of net profit goes to them, 40% is absorbed back into the business. It's to enable them to make a living.
Yeah, and also find out what Beyond Borders Malaysia does, and if you are interested, also volunteer with us. I have to say us now.
I'm a board member. Thank
I'm
you.
a board member. Okay, so thank you everyone. Take care and goodbye. Mahi, I'll call you in a while.
Okay,
all right.
bye.
Thanks. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Awesome.